The USS Liberty moved through the cold darkness of space like a silver needle threading through black cloth. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main screen. His crew had been out here for 3 months mapping new star systems at the edge of human space. It was quiet work, the kind that let a man think too much. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her communication station. Her voice carried that edge that came when routine suddenly became something else. Morrison walked over to her station. Amy was good at her job. Had been with him for 2 years now. She didn't get excited over nothing. "What kind of strange?" "Multiple contacts, sir. Big ones. Moving in formation about 2 light hours out." Amy's fingers danced over her controls. "I've never seen ships that large before." Chief Engineer Ben Parker looked up from his station. "Could be asteroids, Captain. This system has a lot of floating rock." Amy shook her head. "No, sir. These are definitely artificial. Metal signatures are off the charts, and they're heading straight for us." Morrison felt his stomach tighten. The Liberty was an exploration ship, not a warship. She had basic shields and a few light weapons, enough to deal with pirates or clear debris. Whatever was coming their way sounded like it could crush them without slowing down. "How long until they reach us?" Morrison asked. "At current speed, about 6 hours," Amy replied. "Sir, they're massive. My instruments are saying some of these ships are over 5 kilometers long." Dr. Lisa Grant, the ship's science officer, moved to the sensor station. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who noticed things others missed. "Captain, I'm reading at least 50 ships in that formation. The energy signatures suggest technology far beyond anything we have." Morrison nodded slowly. This was either first contact with an alien species or the last day of his life. Maybe both. "Amy, prepare. A standard first contact message. Broadcast on all frequencies. Let them know we're peaceful explorers from Earth." "Yes, sir." Amy worked at her station for a few minutes, then looked up. "Message sent, Captain. Now we wait." They didn't wait long. The response came back in perfect English, which should have been their first warning. "Human vessel. You will halt immediately and prepare for boarding. This sector belongs to the Zephyrian Galactic Empire. Your species will submit to Imperial authority." The voice was cold, mechanical, like it was reading from a script. Morrison had heard that tone before, from bullies, who thought size made them right. "Open a channel," Morrison ordered. When Amy nodded, he stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Liberty. We're explorers on a peaceful mission. We had no knowledge this area was claimed by your empire. We're willing to negotiate." The response came immediately. "Negotiation implies equality. You are primitives who have barely learned to leave your home world. You will surrender your vessel and prepare to be processed as subjects of the Empire." Morrison felt anger rise in his chest but kept his voice steady. "We appreciate your position, but humans don't surrender to threats. We'd prefer to discuss this like civilized beings." There was a long pause. When the voice returned, it sounded almost confused. "Your response does not match our records. Primitive species surrender when faced with superior force. This is the natural order." "Maybe your records are wrong," Morrison said. What happened next proved they were dealing with beings who had never heard the word no. The Liberty's entire bridge went dark as something shut down every system on the ship. Emergency lights flickered on, casting red shadows across frightened faces. "They just turned off our ship like a light switch," Ben said, his voice tight with disbelief. "I've never seen anything like it. They didn't damage us, just made everything stop working." Through the main screen, they watched as one of the alien ships approached. It was enormous, black metal shaped like a dagger, covered in lights that pulsed with alien purpose. Smaller craft emerged from it like insects from a hive. "Captain, they're docking with us," Amy reported from her dead station, reading from a hand scanner. "Multiple boarding craft." Morrison straightened his uniform. "All hands, we have visitors. Remember your training and represent humanity well, or why aliens that entered the Liberty were unlike anything humans had imagined." They stood 7 feet tall, with skin like gray leather and eyes that glowed gold in the dim emergency lighting. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known fear. Their leader wore armor that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. When he spoke, his voice came from a device at his throat that translated his words into English. I am Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your vessel is now property of the Empire. You will be transported to a processing facility where your species will be evaluated for service positions. Morrison stepped forward. He was a full foot shorter than the alien, but he didn't back down. I'm Captain Morrison. This is a human vessel in space we consider international territory. You have no right to board us or take us prisoner. Vextar tilted his head like a bird studying an insect. Rights are determined by strength. We have ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. Your species has existed in space for less than 400. You are children playing with toys. Children who don't like being told what to do, Morrison replied. Dr. Grant watched the exchange carefully. She noticed how the alien seemed genuinely puzzled by human resistance. They acted like beings who had never faced real opposition. Their weapons were advanced, their technology incredible, but their behavior suggested they were more used to ceremony than combat. Your defiance is noted but irrelevant, Vextar said. You will be taken to Processing Station 7, where your species will be studied and assigned appropriate roles within the Empire. Compliance is not optional. As the human crew was led away from their ship, Morrison managed to catch Ben's eye. The engineer nodded slightly and slipped something small into his hand. It was a data chip, the kind used for emergency beacons. Ben had managed to record everything that happened and prepare a warning message. While the aliens were focused on securing the humans, Ben's automated systems quietly launched a small probe toward Earth. It would take months to reach human space, but it carried a message that would change everything. The probe's message was simple. Hostile aliens with superior technology were coming. Humans had one chance to prepare, or their species would become slaves to an empire that had never learned the difference between strength and cruelty. As the Liberty disappeared into the alien ship's docking bay, Morrison looked back at the stars and whispered a prayer that someone would be listening when that message reached home. 3 months after the Liberty disappeared, Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station picked up a weak signal. The message was broken and filled with static, but the words that came through changed everything. Warning. Hostile aliens. Superior technology. Coming to Earth. Prepare for. Admiral Patricia Hughes stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, staring at the message transcript. She had spent 30 years in the military, fought in 3 wars, and never felt fear like this. An alien empire was coming to conquer humanity, and Earth had maybe weeks to prepare. How long do we have? She asked the technician who had decoded the message. The signal degradation suggests it traveled for at least 12 weeks, ma'am. Based on the source location, we estimate their fleet could arrive in 48 to 72 hours. General Carlos Rodriguez, head of ground forces, looked up from his tablet. 48 hours to prepare for an alien invasion, that's not much time. It's what we have, Hughes replied. Get me President Baker on secure line. We need to mobilize everything. Within 6 hours, every military base on Earth was buzzing with activity. Ships that had been in maintenance were rushed back into service. Weapons that existed only on drawing boards were built in emergency factories. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to work together when facing extinction. Dr. Nathan Price led a team of scientists analyzing the warning beacon. The data was limited, but it painted a picture of technology beyond human understanding. Energy weapons that could shut down entire ships, vessels kilometers long, and an empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. The good news is they seem to underestimate us, Price told Admiral Hughes during a briefing. The message suggests they expect easy conquest. The bad news is their technology makes our best weapons look like stone tools. What about numbers? Hughes asked. Unknown, but if they're used to conquering entire species, they'll bring enough firepower to crack planets. President Helen Baker addressed the world that evening. She stood behind her desk in the Oval Office, looking directly into the camera. Her words were simple and clear. Fellow citizens of Earth, we face a threat unlike any in human history, and Dio. Alien Empire believes they can conquer us and make us slaves. They have superior technology and thousands of years of experience ruling other worlds, but they have never faced humans before. She paused, letting her words sink in. We will not surrender. We will not kneel. We will show them what happens when someone tries to cage the human spirit. Every man, woman, and child has a role to play in the coming fight. We stand together, or we fall together. The speech was broadcast in every language on Earth. Within hours, volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Factories switched to military production. Scientists worked around the clock on new weapons. Humanity prepared for war with the focused intensity of a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. Admiral Kethmore commanded the Zephyrian conquest fleet as it approached the Sol system. 500 ships, each one capable of destroying cities, moved in perfect formation through space. It was massive overkill for a primitive species, but the Empire believed in making examples. "Admiral, we are entering the target system," reported his tactical officer. Kethmore studied the display showing Earth's solar system. 9 planets orbited a yellow star, with the 3rd planet showing signs of the primitive civilization they had come to collect. Intelligence suggested the humans had barely left their homeworld, with only small outposts on nearby planets. Signal the fleet to assume conquest formation. Broadcast the standard surrender demand to the 3rd planet. The message that reached Earth was the same one the Empire had used for 50,000 years. It offered protection in exchange for submission, service in exchange for survival. It was a generous offer by Imperial standards. President Baker's response was broadcast on all human frequencies and transmitted to the alien fleet. To the representatives of the Zephyrian Empire, we have received your demand for surrender. We respectfully decline. Earth and her colonies are sovereign territory. We suggest you leave our system immediately and seek conquest elsewhere. Aboard. His flagship, Admiral Kethmore, stared at the message in confusion. In 5 decades of service, he had never encountered a species that refused Imperial protection. The response made no logical sense. "Admiral, how should we respond to this error?" asked his second-in-command. "They must not understand the situation," Kethmore replied. "Scan their military assets, show them the futility of resistance." The scan results were puzzling. The humans had thousands of small ships scattered throughout their system, plus defensive stations around several planets. For a primitive species, they seemed unusually well armed. They appear to have militarized their entire system. The tactical officer reported. Energy signatures suggest they are prepared for combat. Kethmore made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Destroy one of their outer settlements. A small demonstration will clarify our superiority, the Siendire. Target was Mining Station Alpha 7, a small facility in the asteroid belt with a crew of 200. The Zephyrian destroyer approached slowly, charging its main weapon to deliver a precise strike that would vaporize the station. The moment the alien ship's weapon began to glow, every human vessel in the solar system opened fire. Admiral Hughes had placed her ships carefully. When the aliens entered the system, they found themselves surrounded by a web of human forces. Mining ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners, and military vessels all carried weapons. The entire system had been turned into a fortress. All units engage the enemy, Hughes broadcast. Show them what humans do to invaders. The battle that followed was unlike anything in the Empire's history. The Zephyrians fought like individuals commanding advanced technology. Each ship was a fortress, nearly invulnerable to human weapons. But the humans fought like a swarm, coordinating thousands of vessels in complex attack patterns. Captain Rick Davis led a squadron of fighters through the asteroid belt, using the rocks as cover while his pilots launched hit-and-run attacks. The aliens had never faced enemies who used terrain as a weapon. "This is Red Leader," Davis called over the radio. "Their shields are strong, but they don't seem to know how to fight multiple small targets. Keep moving. Keep them guessing." The Zephyrians discovered that while their individual ships were superior, the humans had something they lacked. Thousands of years of experience fighting wars against equally intelligent opponents. Every human commander knew tactics the aliens had never seen. Admiral Kethamore watched his perfect formation dissolve into chaos as human ships struck from unexpected angles. His crews, trained for ceremonial conquests, struggled to adapt to actual combat. "Admiral, we are taking heavy losses," his tactical officer reported. "The primitives fight with no regard for proper battle doctrine, because they don't know they're supposed to lose," Kethamore realized. For the first time in his career, he gave an order he never thought he would speak. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. We need to reassess our approach." As the Zephyrian fleet pulled back, Admiral Hughes allowed herself a small smile. They had won the first round, but she knew the real fight was just beginning. The aliens would return with more ships, better tactics, and a lot more respect for human capabilities. In his command center, General Rodriguez prepared ground defenses for what was coming next. "They'll be back," he told his staff, "and next time they won't underestimate us." Earth had sent a message to the galaxy. Humans would not go quietly into slavery. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn why their species had never faced real resistance before. They had always conquered civilizations that surrendered when faced with superior force. Humans had a different philosophy. When someone hits you, you hit back harder. The second wave came 3 days later. Admiral Kethamore had called for reinforcements and changed his tactics. This time, the Zephyrian fleet split into smaller groups, attacking multiple human positions at once. They thought dividing human forces would make conquest easier. They were wrong. Commander Rick Davis watched the alien ships approach Luna Base through his fighter's cockpit. His squadron was hidden in the shadow of the moon, waiting for the right moment to strike. The aliens had learned to expect attacks from the asteroid belt, but they still fought like beings who had never faced a real war. "Red Squadron, this is Red Leader," Davis spoke into his radio. "Remember, these lizards think war is a parade. Let's show them what a real fight looks like." The human fighters burst from their hiding spots like angry wasps. The Zephyrians had expected a direct assault, not pilots who used the moon's gravity to slingshot themselves at impossible angles. Davis pulled his ship through a turn that would have killed most alien pilots, coming up behind a Zephyrian destroyer. Fox 2, Fox 2, he called, launching missiles at the enemy ship's engine section. The destroyer's shields held, but the impact sent it spinning off course. Down on Luna Base, Colonel Maria Santos watched the space battle while preparing her own defenses. The aliens were trying to land ground troops on the moon's surface, thinking they could capture the base and use it against Earth. "All units, check your seals," Santos ordered her troops. "We're about to take this fight outside." The Zephyrian dropships landed in the lunar dust, disgorging soldiers in powered armor that gleamed like silver insects. They moved in perfect formation toward the human base, following tactics that had worked on 1,000 conquered worlds. Private Tony Mitchell crouched behind a rocky ridge, watching the aliens advance. He was 19 years old from a farm in Kansas and had never imagined he would be fighting aliens on the moon. But when the shooting started, all that mattered was the soldiers beside him. "Contact front," he called into his radio. 50+ aliens moving in column formation. The aliens expected the humans to retreat when faced with superior numbers and equipment. Instead, Santos had prepared a trap. As the Zephyrians advanced through a narrow valley between two ridges, human soldiers emerged from hidden positions on both sides. The battle was fierce and close. Zephyrian weapons could punch through human armor, but the aliens had never fought an enemy that refused to break. When Private Mitchell was hit by alien fire and fell, his squad mates didn't retreat. They fought harder. "Tony's down," Sergeant Kelly Harper called. "Someone get to him." Corporal Danny Stone ran through enemy fire to reach the wounded private. A Zephyrian soldier raised his weapon to stop him, but Harper put 3 rounds in the alien's chest. The Zephyrians watched in confusion as humans risked their lives to save one injured soldier. Why do they not retreat when their pack member falls? One alien commander asked another over their radio. Unknown. This behavior does not match our tactical databases. Dr. Jennifer Kim worked frantically in her lab beneath Luna Base as the battle raged above. She had been studying pieces of captured Zephyrian technology, looking for weaknesses. What she found changed everything. "Colonel Santos, this is Dr. Kim," she called over the base radio. "I found something important about their equipment." Make it fast, Doc, Santos replied, ducking as alien energy bolts flew overhead. We're a little busy up here. Their technology is incredible, but it's all automated. The individual soldiers don't really control their weapons and armor. Everything runs through central computers. If we can disrupt their command signals... Kim had discovered the Empire's greatest weakness. They had built amazing technology, but they had forgotten how to fight without it. Every Zephyrian soldier was connected to a tactical network that told them what to do and when to do it. Can you jam their signals? Santos asked. Already working on it. Give me 5 minutes. When Kim activated her jamming device, the effect was immediate. Zephyrian soldiers who had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly stumbled and hesitated. Their weapons stopped auto-targeting. Their armor's tactical displays went dark. For the first time in their lives, the aliens had to think for themselves. In combat, the humans pressed their advantage. Santos led her troops in a counterattack that drove the confused aliens back to their landing ships. Without their technological support, the Zephyrians fought like beings who had never learned individual combat skills. In space, Commander Davis saw his chance. The jamming signal had affected the alien ships too. Their perfect formations became loose clusters of vessels whose pilots were trying to remember how to fly manually. All fighters, hit them now while they're blind, Davis ordered. The human pilots struck like sharks sensing blood. They had trained to fight without computer assistance, learning to rely on their own skills and instincts. The aliens had no such training. Captain Steve Johnson commanded the destroyer USS Vigilant as it closed with a Zephyrian capital ship. His vessel was tiny compared to the alien dreadnought, but Johnson had something the enemy lacked: 30 years of human military experience. Bring us in close, he ordered his helmsman. Right against their hull. Sir, their point defense systems will tear us apart, his weapons officer warned. Not if they can't target us properly, Johnson replied. Dr. Kim's jamming is making them fight like we do every day, on instinct. The Vigilant slipped past the alien ship's confused defenses and latched onto its hull with magnetic clamps. Johnson's crew began cutting through the armor with mining lasers, turning their ship into a giant can opener. This is insane, the Zephyrian captain transmitted. You are destroying your own vessel to damage ours. Welcome to human warfare, Johnson replied. The tactic worked. The human destroyer's sacrifice crippled the alien capital ship and forced the rest of the Zephyrian fleet to retreat again. But the cost was high. Johnson and his crew died when their ship's reactor overloaded, taking half the alien vessel with them. Admiral Kethmore sat in his command center, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. His technologically superior force had been defeated, again by primitives using tactics no civilized species would consider. Admiral, we have reports from ground forces as well, his aide reported. The humans fight as individuals, but also as a group. When one is injured, others risk themselves to provide aid. When one ship is destroyed, others become more aggressive rather than retreating. This makes no logical sense, Kethmore said. Why do they not surrender when facing superior force? Why do they fight harder when losing? His tactical officer, a veteran of many conquests, looked troubled. Sir, I believe we are dealing with a species that has spent its entire evolution learning to fight against enemies as intelligent as themselves. Every other race we have conquered surrendered when faced with overwhelming force. These humans seem to prefer death to slavery. Kethmore realized he was facing something the Empire had never encountered, a species that actually knew how to wage war. For 50,000 years, the Zephyrians had been conquerors, not warriors. They had forgotten the difference. Send a message to the Empire, he ordered. Request immediate reinforcement. Tell them we need the Decimator fleet. His aide hesitated. Sir, the Decimator fleet has never been used against a single planet before. It was designed to destroy entire star systems. These humans are not like other species, Kethmore replied. They do not fear death. They do not accept defeat. They fight like demons, and they make us look like children playing war games. As the Zephyrian fleet withdrew to await reinforcements, the humans on Luna Base and Earth celebrated their victory. But Admiral Hughes and her commanders knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would return with more ships, deadlier weapons, and a better understanding of what they faced. Dr. Kim continued her work on captured alien technology, while Colonel Santos trained her troops for the larger battles to come. They had proven humans could fight the Empire and win. Now they had to prove they could survive what was coming next. The Zephyrian Empire was about to send its most feared weapon against a species that had just taught them the difference between conquest and war. The Decimator fleet arrived 2 weeks later, and it was a sight that made even seasoned human commanders pause. 10,000 ships stretched across space like a metal storm cloud, each one larger than Earth's biggest city. At their head came the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, a ship so massive it had its own gravity field. Supreme War Master Zixthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying reports from the failed conquest attempts. In 3,000 years of service, he had never been called to deal with a single planet. The Decimator fleet was reserved for rebellious sectors, not primitive worlds. "War Master, we are approaching the target system," his navigator reported. Zixthul examined the tactical display. The humans had been busy since the last attack. Mining stations had been converted into weapons platforms. Cargo ships bristled with missile pods. Even passenger liners carried enough firepower to threaten small warships. "They have militarized their entire civilization," his intelligence officer observed. "Every vessel, every station, every settlement shows signs of weaponization." "Desperation," Zixthul replied. "They know they cannot win, so they fight with everything they have. It will make their defeat more complete." On Earth, Admiral Tom Bradley reviewed the intelligence reports with growing concern. The human fleet had grown since the last battle, incorporating captured alien technology and new weapons designed by Dr. Jennifer Kim's research teams. But 10,000 ships was beyond anything they had prepared for. "How many vessels can we field?" President Baker asked during the emergency briefing. 800 combat-ready ships," Bradley replied. "Plus, about 3,000 civilian vessels with weapons modifications. Against 10,000 alien ships, the math is not encouraging." Dr. Nathan Price looked up from his tablet. "The good news is we have Captain Morrison and his crew back." Jake Morrison had escaped from the Zephyrian prison world 3 days earlier, along with most of his crew. Their intelligence about Empire weaknesses had already proven valuable, but Morrison brought something more important: proof that the aliens could be beaten. "What did you learn about them during your captivity?" Baker asked Morrison. "They're not warriors, Madam President. They're administrators with advanced weapons. They've spent so long conquering through intimidation that they've forgotten how to actually fight a war. Every defeat surprises them because they expect everyone to surrender." Morrison had spent months observing his captors. The Zephyrians were brilliant engineers and skilled politicians, but they approached warfare like a mathematical problem. They had never faced an enemy that refused to follow their calculations. "They have one more weakness," Morrison continued. "Their entire command structure depends on rank and protocol. They can't adapt quickly because every decision has to go through proper channels." Admiral Bradley smiled grimly. "Then we'll make sure they don't have time for proper channels." The battle plan that emerged was the most desperate gambit in human history. Instead of meeting the alien fleet in open space, humanity would turn the entire solar system into a weapon. Every planet, moon, asteroid, and space station would play a role in the defense. Engineer Sarah Williams had spent the last 2 weeks working on the most important project of her life. Using captured Zephyrian technology, she had created hybrid weapons that combined alien power sources with human ingenuity. The results were impressive, but they had only built enough for a few dozen ships. "Will it be enough?" Admiral Bradley asked as he inspected the new weapons. "It will have to be," Williams replied. "We're not trying to match their firepower. We're trying to confuse them long enough to get close." The Decimator fleet entered the solar system like conquering gods, expecting humanity's final surrender. Instead, they found a trap that spanned billions of kilometers. War Master Zixthul received the standard surrender demand response from Earth. President Baker's message was short and direct. "The answer is still no. If you want our world, come and take it." "Begin planetary bombardment," Zixthul ordered. "Reduce their major cities to ash. When they see their civilization burning, They will reconsider. The first salvo of planet-killer weapons never reached Earth. Hidden among the asteroids, human ships launched clouds of debris that absorbed or deflected the energy beams. What got through was stopped by defensive satellites that had been disguised as space junk. Impossible, Zixthol's weapons officer reported. The primitives have shielded their entire planet. Then we will destroy the shields, the War Master replied. All ships advanced to close range. The Decimator fleet moved toward Earth in perfect formation, just as military doctrine required. They flew straight into the most complex ambush in military history. The attack began at Jupiter, where Commander Rick Davis led a squadron of fighters equipped with Sarah Williams's hybrid engines. The human ships accelerated to impossible speeds, striking the alien fleet's rearguard before the Zephyrians could react. Hit and run, people, Davis called over the radio. Don't stick around to trade shots. We're gnats attacking elephants, but even elephants can be stung to death. At Mars, Colonel Maria Santos commanded a network of hidden weapon platforms that opened fire as the alien fleet passed. The Zephyrians found themselves under attack from directions they hadn't even scanned. Contact on all vectors, the Decimator, fleet's tactical officer reported. The humans have weapons hidden throughout their system. But the real surprise came when the civilian ships joined the battle. Freighters that should have been running for safety instead charged toward the alien fleet. Passenger liners opened fire with weapons that had been hidden in their cargo holds. Even small personal craft joined the attack. Dr. Laura Thompson watched the battle from her laboratory on Luna Base, where she was working on humanity's most desperate weapon. If the fleet battle failed, Earth would need something that could stop an empire. Dr. Thompson, how long until the quantum resonance weapon is ready? Admiral Bradley asked over the radio. 6 hours minimum, she replied. And that's assuming the calculations are correct. We've never tested anything like this. The weapon was based on captured alien technology, but modified with human understanding of quantum physics. If it worked, it would disable every Zephyrian ship in the solar system. If it failed, Earth would be defenseless. Captain Steve Johnson's sacrifice during the previous battle had taught the humans an important lesson about Zephyrian psychology. The aliens couldn't understand why humans would destroy their own ships to damage the enemy. They saw it as waste rather than tactics. Commander Rachel Stone decided to use that confusion. She led a squadron of older destroyers on what appeared to be a suicide run against Zixthol's flagship. The Zephyrians concentrated fire on the human ships, expecting them to retreat when damaged. Instead, Stone's ships kept coming. When the USS Defiant lost its engines, it continued the attack using emergency thrusters. When the USS Courage lost life support, her crew kept fighting in vacuum suits. The aliens watched in horror as humans chose death over defeat. Why do they not preserve themselves? Zixthol demanded. Their ships are crippled. Logic demands retreat. War Master, I believe they intend to ram us, his tactical officer replied. The idea was so alien to Zephyrian thinking that Zixthol almost couldn't process it. In 50,000 years of Empire history, no species had ever chosen mutual destruction over surrender. All ships, evasive maneuvers, he ordered, but it was too late. Commander Stone's remaining ships struck the Eternal Dominion's escort vessels like guided missiles. The explosions disabled 3 alien dreadnoughts and sent shockwaves through the Decimator fleet's perfect formation. In the chaos that followed, humanity's real attack began. Captain Morrison led a strike force of ships equipped with Dr. Kim's jamming technology straight into the heart of the alien fleet. Without their command networks, the Zephyrian ships became individual targets rather than a coordinated force. All units, break their formations, Morrison ordered. Make them fight as individuals instead of a fleet. The battle raged across the solar system for 18 hours. Human ships darted between the massive alien vessels like fighter planes attacking bombers. Zephyrian weapons could destroy human ships with single hits, but they couldn't hit targets that moved like swarms instead of formations. As the sun rose over Earth, War Master Zixthol found himself in an impossible situation. His fleet was scattered, his communications were jammed, and he was fighting an enemy that refused to follow any logical pattern of behavior. War Master, we are receiving a communication from the human planet, his aide reported. On the main screen appeared Admiral Bradley, broadcast from Earth's military command center. Behind him, the planet looked peaceful and untouched despite hours of battle. War Master Zixthul, this is Admiral Bradley of the Earth Defense Force. I want to discuss terms for your surrender. The words hit Zixthul like a physical blow. In 3,000 years of conquest, no one had ever demanded his surrender. You are outnumbered 10-1, Zixthul replied. Your fleet is destroyed. Your planet is defenseless. Bradley smiled. Look around you, War Master. Your perfect formation is broken. Your ships are scattered across our system, and we're still fighting. The question is, how many more of your people are you willing to lose before you admit that humans don't surrender? War Master Zixthul stared at the human admiral on his screen, processing words that had never been spoken to him before. In 3,000 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever demanded his surrender. The concept was so foreign that his mind struggled to understand it. You cannot be serious. Zixthul finally replied. We are the Decimator Fleet. We have crushed rebellions across 100 sectors. You are one small planet. Admiral Bradley's expression remained calm. War Master, in the last 18 hours you've lost 47 ships. Your formation is broken. Your command structure is compromised. Your fleet is scattered across our entire solar system. Meanwhile, Earth remains untouched. How is this victory for your empire? The truth was painful but undeniable. The Decimator Fleet, designed to destroy entire star systems, had been fought to a standstill by a species that had barely learned to leave its home planet. Zixthul looked at his tactical display and saw his mighty fleet reduced to confused clusters of ships trying to regroup. What are your terms? He asked, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. Complete withdrawal from our system, safe passage for Captain Morrison and his crew, and a meeting between your Supreme Commander and our President to discuss the future. Behind Zixthul, his bridge crew watched in stunned silence. No one in the Empire's history had dictated terms to a war master, but the alternative was continuing. A battle they were clearly losing against an enemy that fought like no species they had ever encountered. I will relay your demands to Supreme Commander Vextar, Zixthul said finally. The response from the Empire's capital came 3 days later. Supreme Commander Vextar himself would come to Sol System for negotiations. It was unprecedented, but then everything about this war had broken imperial precedent. President Helen Baker stood on the observation deck of Peace Station, a neutral facility hastily constructed at the edge of the solar system. Through the massive windows, she could see the two fleets maintaining their positions. Human ships moved in loose formations, ready to scatter at the first sign of trouble. Zephyrian vessels held perfect ranks, but their discipline looked brittle after weeks of defeat. Madam President, the Imperial ship is approaching, Admiral Bradley reported. Supreme Commander Vextar is requesting permission to board. Grant it, Baker replied. Let's see what the master of a galactic empire looks like when he's forced to negotiate. Vextar entered the station's conference room like a being unused to walking among equals. He was taller than any human, his gray skin marked with the scars of 1,000 battles, his golden eyes holding the weight of 50,000 years of conquest. But those eyes now carried something new: uncertainty. President Baker, Vextar said, his voice translated by the same device Morrison remembered from the Liberty. I come to understand what manner of species we have encountered. Baker gestured to a chair built for the alien commander's size. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Your species confuses us, Vextar continued after taking his seat. We offer protection, prosperity, and purpose within our empire. Every intelligent race accepts this gift. You refuse it and choose war instead. Why? Baker studied the alien leader carefully. Despite his imposing presence, she could see the genuine puzzlement in his expression. The Empire truly didn't understand why anyone would choose freedom over safety. Because we believe freedom is worth fighting for, she replied. We've learned that prosperity without choice is just another form of slavery. But you are alone in the galaxy, Vextar argued. We rule 10 million worlds. We have technology beyond your understanding. We offer peace. Captain Morrison, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. War Master, during my captivity, I observed, your people, you have amazing technology and vast resources, but you've forgotten something important. You've forgotten how to struggle, how to adapt, how to fight for something you believe in. Vextar turned his golden eyes on the human captain. We have not fought because we have not needed to fight. Our strength maintains order. Your strength maintains control, Morrison corrected. But when someone challenges that control, you don't know how to respond. You've become so used to automatic obedience that actual resistance confuses you. Dr. Nathan Price, who had been studying captured Imperial technology, added his own observation. Your entire civilization is built on the idea that might makes right. But humans learned long ago that might without right is just tyranny. We've spent our entire history fighting tyrants. Vextar was quiet for a long moment, processing ideas that challenged everything he understood about civilization. Finally, he spoke. What do you propose? President Baker leaned forward. Mutual respect, trade agreements, scientific exchange. We'll share our knowledge with your empire, and you share yours with us. But as equals, not as masters and servants. The empire does not negotiate with primitives, Vextar replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Then maybe it's time the empire learned something new, Baker said. We're not asking you to abandon your civilization. We're asking you to grow beyond it. The negotiations lasted for hours. Slowly, carefully, two very different species began to find common ground. The humans offered something the Empire had never encountered, partnership instead of submission. The Zephyrians, faced with their first military defeat in 50,000 years, found themselves considering new possibilities. Your species is dangerous, Vextar said finally. You fight with no regard for proper tactics. You sacrifice yourselves for others. You refuse to surrender when defeated. You make war personal instead of logical. And your species is brilliant, Baker replied. You've built a civilization that spans the galaxy. You've brought order to chaos. You've achieved things we can barely imagine. But you've forgotten how to change, how to grow, how to face real challenges. Admiral Bradley, who had been monitoring the fleet positions, approached the table. Both fleets are standing down. It appears your War Master has accepted our ceasefire terms. Vextar nodded slowly. Zixthul is a good soldier. He recognizes when continuing a battle serves no purpose. Then let's make sure this battle was the last one between our peoples, Baker said. The final agreement was signed 6 hours later. The Zephyrian Empire would withdraw from human space and recognize Earth's sovereignty. In exchange, humanity would share their military innovations and tactical knowledge with Imperial forces. It was the first treaty of equals the Empire had signed in 50,000 years. As Vextar prepared to leave, he turned to President Baker one final time. Your species will change the galaxy. Other races will see that the Empire can be challenged and survived. There will be more wars. Then maybe the Empire should start thinking about making allies instead of servants, Baker replied, because humans will stand with anyone who fights for their freedom. 3 months later, Ambassador Linda Foster arrived at the Imperial capital aboard the starship New Horizon. She was humanity's first representative to the Galactic community, carrying a simple message from Earth. We come in peace, she told the assembled alien species in the Great Council chamber. We offer friendship, trade, and mutual defense to any who approach us honestly. But let it be known throughout the galaxy that humans will not bow to threats. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not accept slavery disguised as protection. She paused, looking around the chamber filled with representatives of hundreds of worlds. We prefer cooperation to conflict. We choose diplomacy over war. But if someone tries to conquer us, they will discover what the Zephyrian Empire learned. Humans don't surrender. We fight back. And we never forget our friends or forgive our enemies. The message spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Some species saw opportunity for alliance with this new power. Others began planning conquest, believing they could succeed where the Empire had failed. But the wise ones understood the deeper meaning. Humanity had taken its place in the galactic community not as conquerors, but as protectors of freedom. They had shown that even the mightiest empire could be stopped by people willing to fight for what they believed in. The galaxy would never be the same, and deep in space, aboard ships flying the flag of Earth, human crews carried a simple motto that had become known across 1,000 worlds: "Don't push us, we push back." The age of automatic conquest was over. The age of earned respect had begun.